Picture this, right fucking now, while the last dying ember of a 1984 Van Halen backstage joint is still floating somewhere over the U.S. festival grounds, and the ghost of a red and white Kramer Frankenstrat is screaming through every bedroom amp on planet Earth. Wolfgang William Van Halen, born screaming into the world on March 16, 1991, at 7:51 p.m. in St. John's Hospital, Santa Monica, California, the exact second the nurse slapped his ass and the entire rock universe collectively whispered, "Here comes the heir," came into existence carrying a genetic lottery ticket that could buy kingdoms or burn them to the ground. The only child of Edward Lodewijk Van Halen, the Dutch-Indonesian wizard who rewired the electric guitar with his bare hands and a soldering iron made of pure lightning, and Valerie and Bertinelli, the Italian-American sweetheart who turned one day at a time into America's living room wet dream and could make meatball subs look like foreplay. And from the moment the doctor cut the cord, the kid was already public property. Paparazzi camped outside the maternity ward like vultures in members-only jackets, headlines screaming, "Van Halen baby born," before the placenta even hit the biohazard bin. Because in 1991 the name Van Halen wasn't just a band, it was a religion, and little Wolfgang was the chosen one whether he liked it or not. But inside the walls of 5150 Studio Way, Hidden Hills, California, population 3 humans, 1 wolf, the dog, and a rotating cast of rock star uncles who showed up with cases of Corona and stories that would make a sailor blush. Valerie and Eddie slammed the gates shut like Fort Knox and declared martial law on fame. No nannies, no tutors, no "do you know who your daddy is" bullshit. Just a normal-ass kid in a normal-ass house where the only thing weird was the fact that the garage contained a recording studio that birthed Jump and a fridge that once held David Lee Roth's hair gel. Valerie, fresh off a decade of being America's good girl, went full mama bear lockdown. No red carpets, no photo shoots, no letting the kid within 50 feet of a tabloid. While Eddie, the man who could make a guitar sound like a UFO landing on a stripper pole, turned into the softest dad on the planet, changing diapers between inventing new tapping techniques, teaching Wolf how to ride a big wheel down the driveway while secretly praying the kid would become a dentist or something safe. And for the first 8 years it worked. Wolfgang grew up thinking his dad was just a guy who played music sometimes, and that the giant posters of Uncle Dave doing high kicks were just weird family photos. Then one random Tuesday in 1999, 8-year-old Wolf wanders into the living room, trips over a road case the size of a coffin, and there it is, a tower of Van Halen albums stacked like holy relics. Fair warning, 1984. Women and children first. His last name in chrome letters taller than he is, and on the cover his dad mid. Windmill looking like a rock and roll Viking who just discovered electricity. He picks one up, flips it over, sees "Eruption" listed at 142, and yells, "Dad, what the hell is this?" Eddie walks in wearing sweatpants and a grin, hits play on the stereo, and the opening harmonics of "Runnin' with the Devil" punch the kid square in the soul. 30 seconds later Wolf's jaw is on the floor, eyes wide as dinner plates, because the man who just made him macaroni and cheese an hour ago is suddenly the coolest human being on planet Earth. And in that single moment the innocence dies, the weight drops, and the war begins. Because now every time he picks up a plastic guitar from Toys R Us he knows the entire world is watching, waiting, judging, ready to crucify him if he's not the second coming or burn him at the stake if he is. Valerie sees the panic in his eyes and doubles down. No music lessons, no pressure. No, here's your dad's old EVH Phase 90. Go be a genius. Just Little League, Pokemon cards, and sleepovers where the other kids had no idea their friend's dad once made a guitar solo so filthy it got banned in 3 Bible Belt states. Eddie, meanwhile, starts sneaking him drumsticks when mom's not looking, sets up a practice pad in the pool house, tells him hit these magazines in time. Kid, That's the whole game. Because the maestro knows rhythm is the spine and everything else is just showing off. Wolf disappears for hours, wrists bleeding, metronome ticking like a bomb. While down the hall, Eddie listens through the walls with a grin that says, "That's my boy. But he's gonna do it his way or I'll break his fucking legs." And by age 9 the kid is. So good Uncle Alex, the guy who powered Hot for Teacher with thunder from Mount Olympus, hears him through the floorboards and yells upstairs, "Who the hell is playing my kid?" Only to find his nephew laying down grooves that could wake the dead. Age 12, the guitar bug bites, inevitable as gravity. He sneaks into Dad's rig room when Eddie's at the dentist, plugs a beat-up Music Man into a PV practice amp the size of a lunchbox, and tries to copy the Mean Street intro, fingers bleeding, brain melting, because Dad's playing is like trying to catch lightning with your teeth. Eddie walks in, catches him red-handed, doesn't say here, let me show you, just shrugs and goes, figure it out. Kid, I did. Because genius isn't taught. It's caught like a virus. And Wolf spends the next 3 years locked in his room with Guitar World tabs, Blink, 182 CDs, and System of a Down posters, teaching himself power chords and drop D riffs while the entire internet screams he'll never be his dad. Before he's even played a school talent show. 2006, Eddie's cancer is back, tongue swollen, marriage to Valerie long gone, band in shambles. And he looks at his 15-year-old son who's been secretly woodshedding bass lines that could strip paint and says, "Wolf, we're bringing Roth back for a reunion tour. Michael's out, you're in." And the entire rock world collectively shits a brick the size of Gibraltar because replacing Michael Anthony, the guy with the Jack Daniels bass and the 4-octave smile who sang harmonies like an angel on a bender, with a high school sophomore who still has braces, feels like swapping Michelangelo for a finger painter. Message boards explode. Nepo baby trends before Twitter even exists. Grown men in Van Halen t-shirts from 1984 start sharpening pitchforks. And Wolf's only response is, "I'll do it, but no fucking bass solos." Which in teenager speak means, "Please don't make me tap dance on Dad's grave while he's still breathing." 2007 rolls around. 90 shows, 70,000 people a night screaming for Panama and Jump, while the kid on stage left lays down grooves so thick you could spread them on toast, locking in with Uncle Alex like they shared a womb. And every single night the hate rolls in like a tsunami. He's only there because Daddy, Michael, deserved better. Until Wolf just turns his Ampeg stack to 11 and plays so hard the fillings fall out of the front row's teeth. 2008, the tour ends, Eddie's health tanks again, and Wolf quietly bails on the Van Halen circus, tells Dad, "I love you, but I gotta be me," and jumps ship to Tremonti because Mark Tremonti doesn't give a fuck whose DNA he's got, just wants a bassist who can lock in like a ballistic missile. One night in New Jersey, midnight, learns the entire set in 4 hours, hits the road the next day like a bat out of hell. Records cauterize and dust while still doing Van Halen press junkets because apparently sleep is for mortals. 2012, Van Halen drops a different kind of truth. First album with Roth in 28 years, and Wolf's bass lines are all over it. Thick, meaty, modern, nothing like Michael's high-end snap, but somehow perfect. And the critics who predicted disaster eat crow so hard they choke. Because the kid just co-wrote half the riffs on a record that debuts at #1 and sells 1 million copies while Dad's sitting in the control room grinning like a proud serial killer. Then October 6th, 2020, the sky rips open. Eddie loses the 20-year war with cancer, dies in Valerie's arms at St. John's Hospital, same place Wolf was born, full fucking circle. And the entire planet stops spinning for a day. Wolf disappears into the studio for 6 months, records every instrument himself on Mammoth WVH like a one-man exorcism. Drums, bass, guitar, vocals, no co-writers, no session hacks, just a kid and his grief, and a Les Paul that screams in a voice Eddie never used, because this isn't tribute, this is evolution. Distance drops November 2020, a song he wrote for his dying father begging him not to go. Hits number 1 on Billboard Hard Rock, gets a Grammy nomination for Best Rock Song. And suddenly the entire world is crying with him because grief is the great equalizer and Wolf just turned it into a weapon. Mammoth WVH, the album drops June 2021, 14 tracks of pure Wolfgang, no ghostwriters, no safety net, and it debuts at number 1 on Billboard. Hard Rock, number 1 on Independent, number 1 on Rock. And the critics who spent 15 years calling him Nepo Baby suddenly sound like they're gargling gravel because the kid just built a cathedral out of pain and power. Chords Point 2021 tour. First time front and center, no longer hiding behind a bass cabinet the size of a refrigerator. Singing lead with a voice that sounds like heartbreak soaked in honey and broken glass. And the first night in Sayreville, New Jersey, he's backstage vomiting. From terror because what if they only came for dad's songs? Then walks out, and the place erupts like Hiroshima because the songs are that good and the kid is that real. Every night he plays Distance under a single spotlight. Eddie's EVH striped guitar on a stand behind him like a ghost that finally learned to smile. And grown men in the pit are sobbing into their beers because they just realized the son didn't inherit the throne. He built a new one out of the ashes. Point 2023, Mammoth 2 drops. Heavier, angrier, happier. 14 more tracks recorded alone in the same studio where Dad once tracked Eruption, on a cassette deck and a dream. And the first single, Another Celebration at the End of the World, hits number 1 for 7 weeks straight, while Wolf's headlining arenas that used to host Van Halen in their prime. October 8, 2023, marries Andrea Alsop, photographer, software engineer. The only human on Earth who looked at Wolfgang Van Halen and saw Wolf first and Van Halen. Never, in the living room where Eddie once taught him power chords, plays 316 on acoustic as Valerie walks him down the aisle because the old man couldn't be there in body, but damn sure showed up in spirit. And Valerie's crying so hard her mascara files for divorce, while Wolf whispers, "I did it. Dad, I did it my way." March 2024, Ryan Gosling calls out of nowhere, says, "I need you to tap the shit out of I'm Just Ken at the Oscars." And there's Wolf in a pink cowboy suit between Slash, Guns N' Roses legend, and 75 Barbie dancers, ripping an Eddie-style solo that makes the Dolby Theater levitate, while Mark Ronson loses his mind in the pit, and the entire world finally sees him for exactly what he is. Not the son of a legend, but the father of whatever the hell comes next. The trolls still lurk. The Nepo Baby chants still echo in the dark corners of Reddit. But every sold-out headline show, every platinum plaque, every time a kid in the front row screams the words to Distance back at him with tears streaming down their face, another brick gets ripped out of the wall between Wolfgang Van Halen and the world. 33 years old, standing on a stage his father once set on fire, cranking his own EVHSA 126 through a wall of 5150s that roar like dragons, singing songs he wrote in the same room where Panama was born. And every night when the last chord of Take a Bow rings out for 9 minutes straight and the lights go black, you can almost hear Eddie in the rafters laughing that stoner laugh, whispering, "That's my boy, motherfuckers." And he did it without a single goddamn bass solo, just like he promised. Because the kid who once drummed on magazines with bleeding wrists now headlines festivals that used to close with Jump. And the shadow that once swallowed him whole is now the spotlight he stands in, taller than ever, finally free, finally Wolfgang, finally the first and only. And the entire rock world is on its knees screaming one name that isn't Van Halen anymore. It's Mammoth, it's Wolf, it's the kid who took the heaviest crown in history, melted it down, and forged a new one that fits his head perfectly. And if you listen close after the encore, you can hear the ghost of 1984 whisper, "Fuck yeah, son, now turn it up to 12."